Good morning, YouTube. I have my first cup of coffee of the day, so it's breakfast time, and I will take you with me to cook a staple in every cyclist's diet, or I would assume most cyclists' diets, which is, of course, porridge. Now, there are many different ways of cooking porridge. I will show you my version, which is admittedly delicious. Okay, here we are, good to go with everything we need for the porridge. So first off, the porridge, I do it in a saucepan, big saucepan like this, and as you see, it's on a scale. You don't really need to weigh it, but I have my scale always at hand because I use it for coffee cooking, so it's always out there, and it just makes getting the ratio between the solids, the oats, and the liquid right. So let's start. Here I can show you what I will use in terms of oats. This is my personal mix of oat flakes and various types of grain flakes. The big ones that you see in there are like a mix of 4 different types of grains, and then the thin ones are traditional oats. I use like 30 to 35 grams of these, and then I also use these things here, millet flakes. Millet is a really good source of protein, and they are also giving a good consistency and texture to the porridge. So overall I go for 65 grams of oats in there. Now let's talk briefly about oats, because of course, like, porridge is traditionally and really made with steel cut oats, and I would really love to use them. It's just impossible to get these in Germany. If you have any idea where to get steel cut oats in Germany, definitely let me know in the comments, because I would be super keen on working with those. But as I don't have them, I don't use them. I use this mixture here. Okay, so next I will add my seed mix. So in here I take usually in this ratio like 1 big tablespoon, and these are sunflower flakes. There are some hemp seeds in there. There are some Leinsamen. I will put it down below because I don't know the English word. And there is also some sesame in there. So that is my seed mix that I have ready. And then I will also put in some raisins. These, of course, add some sweetness to it. And at this point here, I will look at the scale. I'm at 93 grams. And now for the liquid, I want a 3:1 ratio when cooking it. So as we have 90 here, we go for 270 of liquid. Now, you can essentially use any kind of liquid for porridge. Many people obviously do it with water, others with milk. Me, I like to use a mix of apple juice and water. And for, like, when I go for 270, I will go for roughly 150 of apple juice, so a bit more apple juice than water because it comes with more flavor, and of course also it adds a bit of additional carbs. Okay, so that is this. And then I use water. I just use the one that I boiled because anyways it needs to get hot, but you can also use cold water, it doesn't really matter. And now we're at 275, perfect. Now at this point I put it on the stove and I start on high heat, but only until it starts to bubble and starts to simmer heavily. At this point I will reduce the heat. In the meantime, the last ingredient that I want to put in there right away as the cooking starts is the date. Date, of course, is also a source of protein and a natural sweetener, so we will put in this. Chop. Cut it into thin pieces. Chop. That is what we need. And then I will also add a bit of salt. Salt, really important because it is a natural flavor increaser, essentially. It's not a spice, it's a flavor enhancer. And that is what I do. And I will use 1 spoon of the maple syrup that I have here. So, chop. And now you can see that it starts boiling on hot heat, so I reduce it to a fairly low heat. You don't need to stir it like a risotto all the time, but you still need to stir a fair amount to get all the starch out of the oats and therefore create like the right texture that you want. But yeah, you have time to do other stuff in the meantime, but stir regularly. We have the base of the risotto, and now the question is, what else do you want to put in? I of course want to add more fruit in there. So one thing that I always have in my freezer is a mix of frozen berries. There are blueberries and a berry mix that I buy readily, and I freeze it all together. And this is the berry base, which I add now into my porridge, just the amount I'm looking for. So if I do a pure berry one, then I will put even more than this. But today I still have some old banana, which we are going to use in a minute as well. As the porridge cooks, these will unfreeze and get to the right point, so there is no need to take them out of the freezer before you start making your porridge. It works perfectly like this. Okay, onto this banana that we have here. You see, it's an old one, but it's perfect. Instead of throwing it, you can still use it. And the way I will use it is to add some more carbs, some more sweetness into my porridge. Probably it already has a fair amount of sweetness with the date. So you may, depending on how sweet you like it, you may either use the date or the banana. I don't mind it if in the morning it's a bit on the sweet side. So I add both. Also, I need to use it before it gets bad. Now, what I do with this banana, I use it together with a fork here, and I just smash it so later on I can add it. This will also, of course, impact the consistency of the porridge, and that means you will have to keep it a bit more liquid than if you don't add the banana, but we are talking about a few degrees of liquidity. What we are looking for essentially in the porridge is that once we do this out here, it doesn't run directly to the side, but it stays for a moment in the middle and then slowly goes out to the edge of the pan. That is what we are looking for. We are still a bit away from this point. So I will increase the heat just a tiny bit to speed things up here and give it another good stir. At this point, there is nothing else that we need to do, and I think this will take about 5 to 7 minutes right now. So I will see you back in 7 minutes, and I'm totally, by the way I shoot these videos, I was inspired by, or I stole the way of making it, depending on how you want to put it, from one of my favorite food writers and food content creators, as we would nowadays say, Kenji Alt Lopez. He's really awesome, and he started to shoot these YouTube videos with the GoPro on his head, or at least an action cam on his head. And he does this routine, which I'm just liberally stealing from him, but I give attribution. That is the least you can do. And so see you in 5 minutes. 5 minutes aren't over, but I wanted to take a minute to talk about blueberries in particular, which are a key ingredient in my berry mix. So probably you've heard about it, but many people like blueberries a lot because they come with a fair amount of antioxidants, which of course is pretty useful if you are an athlete. There is also some research that probably indicates that they are good for muscle recovery. Also, they just taste delicious, and all these berries bring a fair amount of acidity to the dish here, which of course helps to balance all the sweetness that we added in there as well. So whether you do it for health and performance reasons, they may very well be a good idea, and when it comes to deliciousness, they certainly are as well. By the way, when you pick blueberries and you manage to get some wild blueberries, which for instance in my supermarket they are frozen wild and not cultured blueberries, they usually have a higher number or a higher content of all the good stuff you want in there. So take the white ones if you can get a hold of them. And as you can see, we are still not at the point where we need the porridge to be. So see you in a couple of minutes. And we are back. Porridge is almost at the good point. You see it is still running to the side walls. A bit too quick for my liking, but also we need to account for the banana. But we are almost there. Just the base of the porridge that I've shown you is really super versatile, and of course there are different other combinations. Another favorite combination of mine is a porridge with a banana like this and grated apples. Grated because it helps to release the pectin in the apples, which is very important for various health reasons. So that is another great combination, which then may also in the end be differently flavored, but we are getting to flavoring in 1 second anyway. So now you see the porridge is not going to the side wall. So without the banana, I would maybe leave it on there 30 seconds more, but for my liking, this is good. And the reason why we are looking for this, by the way, you may know similar techniques from cooking other stuff like risotto, because in the end, many of these dishes are just porridge. Also the congee we did the other day. Nothing is worse than a super runny porridge where everything feels more like a soup almost than a porridge. So now what we do is we put the banana that we prepared in here. And now come a few more tricks that from a nutritional and flavor perspective make sense. So I have this almond cream here, and I will add the almond stuff in here. I take about 1 tablespoon of this, which of course brings a bit of protein, also a bit of fat, but again, fat is an important part of a healthy diet, and we use a lot of it as endurance athletes, so we can refill it. And then last but not least, we add a bit of yogurt, which we mostly do for textural reasons because it increases the creaminess. Also something you need to account for when you cook, because of course this increases a bit the liquidity again. I still have here cashews, and I add a handful of cashews. Gives a bit of a textural variety in it, also brings a bit of protein, plant-based protein, also a bit of fat. And last but not least, I found recently these porridge-specific toppings, including this sweet dukkha. Dukkha, if you don't know it, is hazelnut-based and has a whole bunch of different ingredients here. In this case, it comes with coriander, the seeds obviously, sesame, fennel, some almonds, some citron, orange, mint. So that is really a very aromatic and flavorful topping, which I will add here. I will add a little bit in here. And then when it comes to serving, so if you would serve it for guests, then you may want to consider keeping a few berries out to have some nice looking topping in the end. Here for the homestyle version, we don't overcomplicate stuff, and we keep it simple. Also, as a dad, you start to become quite pragmatic in the kitchen. For instance, the spice mix, I would probably back in the days have made my own and not bought one, or not probably, certainly I would have not used a ready-made spice mix. But if you have kids, you don't have all that time, so you become pragmatic. So here we have our porridge. Let's give it a try. Delicious. I will just put a bit more of my dukkha on top for good measure. And I was a bit concerned with the sweetness of it, but it's really not too sweet, so well done. Breakfast is ready. It's a power breakfast for a day of activity. It is packed with a bunch of carbs, a fair amount of protein, nutritional fiber, a bit of fat, all the goodness you need to spend a day out. Hashtag carb loading. Probably not ideal for a race day where you really need to carb load. Then you would want to cut back on the fiber, and you would also want to maybe cut back on the fat side of things and keep it very plain and basic. But if you're going for your long ride on a Sunday or something, that is the breakfast you want. And I really hope that I can show with this that porridge can be delicious. It's a little bit of work, not too much actually. And it has nothing to do with the stuff your grandmother may have scared you with when you were a kid, or even the boring kind of porridge that some hotels serve. So that is not good. This stuff here is honestly delicious.